Hey there guys, I am the Six Machine and welcome back to another Warhammer video. Today we're taking a step away from the greenskins once again and taking a look at another Dark Angels unit, and in particular one of the most popular units for the Ravenwing, the mighty Black Knights. These guys were introduced back in 6th edition I believe, and it's fair to say that a lot of Dark Angel players absolutely love their background, their lore and their models. But they have always had a tiny bit of a struggle to prove their worthiness on the battlefield for their cost, so let's take a look at their new 9th edition version and see if they are now worth a spot in your list. The Black Knights come in at a hefty 40 points per model, but for that price you do get a suitably beefy profile with movement 14, weapon and ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, a much improved 3 wounds, 2 attacks, leadership 8 and a power armor 3-up save. The jump to 3 wounds is absolutely brilliant on these guys, and with the huge amount of 2 damage weaponry which is all over the game at the moment, this essentially doubles their lifespan against such firepower. They are still of course very vulnerable to the scary D6 and now increasingly common D3 plus 3 damage weapons, but it does mean that the medium strength anti-marine style firepower is now much less of a concern for you as you move these guys around the board. So I do think that all in all, for 40 points, they have a reasonably solid, not overcosted, but just about right profile for what they bring to the table. As Marines, as you would expect, the Angels of Death rule is here, and we won't go into it all that much because we've covered it many times before, but as you might expect, Bolted Discipline does nothing for them, as they have no bolt weapons, and They Shall Know No Fear is great if you take a full 10-man squad, but with the Dark Angels Grim Resolve ability, failing morale isn't really something Dark Angels need to be concerned about, and as we will find out later, Black Knights actually have a way to completely ignore morale completely, so And They Shall Know No Fear is kind of wasted on them. Shock Assault is brilliant, as we will see they are mainly a shooter unit, but they can definitely get their hands dirty in melee too, so getting an extra attack on the charge, pumping a 10-man squad up to 31 attacks on the charge is a really nice bonus to have. And then finally, Combat Doctrines is as always really useful, not only getting their guns and their melee attacks an extra pip of AP, but also unlocking the unique chapter specific super doctrines, which is a huge deal for the Dark Angels specifically, and especially for the Ravenwing. And that is because, as Dark Angels, the Ravenwing specific Sons of the Lion ability, Speed of the Raven, grants your Ravenwing models an extra 3 inches of movement in Devastator Doctrine, bumping them up to a terrifying 17-inch move in turn 1. The second part, being able to fire even if they've advanced, isn't actually very relevant to the Black Knights because they do have assault weapons anyway, so they can already do that. But that extra 3 inches of movement can make such a huge difference to your deployment, your game plan, maybe even some potential turn 1 charges, and also what your opponent does in deployment and trying to avoid that huge threat radius that your Black Knights now have. And just while we're talking about Dark Angel specific stuff, we may as well cover Grim Resolve here, which is the main Dark Angels chapter tactic. This, as mentioned, helps you with morale, giving you essentially the ability to ignore combat attrition, but as I said, Black Knights can pretty much ignore morale anyway, so we won't worry about that. More importantly, it also means that if you don't move, you get +1 to hit for the rest of that turn. Now, of course, as a bike unit, you probably are going to be moving these guys around most of the game, getting them into combat or grabbing objectives or just harassing the enemy backlines, but it does mean that if an enemy manages to get a charge off into you, or you get stuck in an ongoing combat, you will be going from hitting on 3s to hitting on 2s, which can drastically increase the amount of damage that you can do to your enemy. So it is really a very good chapter tactic, and one which, while maybe not as relevant on these guys as it would be on, say, a Greenwing army, will definitely have an impact on your Ravenwing force over the course of the game. The Black Knights also have the combat squads rule, so if you do decide to bring a full 10-man squad, you can split it up into 2 5-man squads. This can be quite handy if you are running pure Ravenwing, because even in the Outrider detachment, it is very easy to run out of fast attack slots with all of the bikers and the land speeders that Ravenwing have access to. So essentially getting 2 fast attack slots for the price of 1 is a really useful bonus that you will almost certainly be taking advantage of in every single game if you are running pure Ravenwing. It also obviously has the advantage of making your expensive, scary Black Knight squad much less of a target when it is split into 2 5-man squads compared to 1 big juicy 10-man squad target. And then another shared rule between all bikers that the Black Knights have is the Turbo Boost ability, which gives you an automatic 6 inches when you advance, and so bringing your potential turn 1 movement to a very impressive 23 inches. And of course, thanks to your assault weapons, you can still fire after all of that. So if any opponent thought that they could screen out or outrange your guns turn 1, they are going to be in for a very nasty surprise when you tell them that your Black Knights have a possible 41-inch threat radius on their plasma guns in turn 1. As well as all that, the Black Knights, thanks to the Ravenwing and the Inner Circle keywords, have both the Inner Circle and the Jinx special rule. Now, Inner Circle, unfortunately, doesn't give them transhuman physiology. I know it would be amazing if it did, and I really do wish it did, but unfortunately we're just not that lucky. It does, however, mean that not only do the Black Knights always pass morale, so again making and they shall know no fear and the morale part of Grim Resolve rather redundant, but it also means that they can never fall back against the Fallen. So that is a downside, sure, but let's be real, it's such a rare, niche occurrence that it's almost not worth worrying about 99% of the time, and I would consider this rule pretty much completely upside for the Black Knights. The Ravenwing keyword, on the other hand, brings a much bigger and much more tangible benefit, in that by having it, you unlock the truly game-changing Jinx special rule for your bikers. And what this does is that it gives you a 5-up invulnerable save against shooting, which is huge. It's important to note that you lose this if you stay still, so it does kind of act in a counterintuitive way with Grim Resolve, but I would say that most of the time you're going to want to keep up that 5-up invuln, so just keep on moving, unless you really need to kill an enemy unit and you're on maybe the last turn of the game, in which case it might be worth sacrificing that invuln for the +1 to hit. But I would say most of the time, yeah, you're going to be wanting to keep moving your Black Knights to get that 5-up invuln. It's also worth noting that on top of that, if you advance, and again, you should be doing this as often as you can because you can still fire thanks to your assault weapons, that invuln gets increased even more to an even more powerful 4-up until your next turn. And what that means is at turn 1, your Black Knights can potentially advance up to 23 inches and then still fire their guns and get an incredible 4-up invuln just for doing so. So they do really have some very tasty special rules, and the Dark Angels and Ravenwing abilities really do buff them quite considerably in terms of not only their movement but also their durability. But what about their damage output? Well, at a base level, each biker comes with a bolt pistol and frag and crack grenades as you would expect, but their main weapon is the very Dark Angels Plasma Talon, which is an 18-inch Assault 2, Strength 7, -3 AP, 1 damage gun, which can be overcharged into a Strength 8 2 damage version instead, with the usual caveat that if you roll any unmodified 1s, you lose the biker after you've resolved all the attacks. It really is a very solid gun profile, giving the entire squad some brilliant anti-heavy infantry firepower, and in a bigger 10-man squad, a genuinely solid amount of anti-tank firepower as well, especially if you choose to overcharge. And a full 10-man squad, just for information, can expect to do just under 9 wounds to an Imperial Knight if they overcharge, or against something like an Intercessor squad, your 20 plasma shots should expect to kill just over 9 of them outright, pretty much auto-deleting an entire intercessor or tactical squad in one volley, which is honestly some really impressive firepower. 1 in 3 of your knights can also swap out their plasma talon for an Astartes grenade launcher for free, which lets you shoot either frag or crack grenades up to 30 inches. But I'll be honest with you, I really can't see any reason to ever take this. The plasma is just so much more versatile and so much more powerful, and with the movement you have on the bikes, even the slight downside of the only having an 18-inch range isn't really that much of a difficult problem to overcome, because you have that 14-inch move to get around the board. On the melee front, however, this is where the cracks start to appear for the Black Knights. They have no melee weapons base at all, not even a chainsword. So if they are not given anything, they're just hitting with their fists. But what options do they have? Well, they can all take a Corvus Hammer, which brings them a +1 strength, -1 AP, 2 damage profile. And so that essentially means that on the charge, each Black Knight turns into a heavy bolter in combat. The problem with this is that the upgrade costs you 5 points per model. And while that may not sound like too much, it adds a full 50 points to a 10-man squad and brings the price per model to 45 points, which really is starting to get pretty hefty in terms of your investment on the battlefield, especially when you consider just how much of a target these guys will be to your opponent. The Huntmaster Sergeant can instead take a power sword or a power maul, again for 5 points. I would argue the sword might be worth it just from a looks and a fluff perspective, but most of the time just sticking with the 2 damage profile of the Corvus Hammer is arguably the best option for him. It's just, again, you're adding more and more cost to a unit, which is already, as I said, it's okay points wise, it's not overcosted at 40 point, but it isn't exactly undercosted either. So adding that additional 5 points per model, that really does start to push them towards the red line of being maybe a bit too pricey. I think before we make a final decision about whether they are worth it or not, we should have a quick look at the stratagems and other rules which might be available to them and which might have an impact on how well they perform. And the best place to start, of course, is the astoundingly good The Hunt stratagem, which for 2 or 3 CP, depending on the size of the squad, gives your unit a normal move before the game begins. Now this is specifically before the first battle round, so I don't think you will get your 17-inch move, but still being able to make a 14-inch move with a full 10-man squad of Black Knights can honestly be completely game-changing in itself. Getting your squad out of line of sight from a scary enemy unit, or charging up the board ready to unleash a devastating turn 1 charge on your opponent's battle lines, it really can turn the game in your favour. You can essentially move up 14 inches and then in your first turn make another 17-inch move, fire at full ballistic skill if you don't advance, and then get off a probably no more than 2 or 3-inch charge right into pretty much any enemy squad on the battlefield. It really is an unbelievably strong stratagem and combos really well with the Black Knights. And then following on from that, if you've made that turn 1 charge, you can always use the equally amazing Swift Strike afterwards, which again for 2 or 3 CP depending on your squad size allows you to disengage from your enemy and fall back straight after you have fought. So what this means is that you could charge into your enemy's scariest melee unit, maybe a squad of Incubi with Drazar, and then unleash all of your attacks, and if you don't manage to kill them all, use this stratagem and fall back and, you know, head back towards your battle lines and your table hearth without ever letting your opponent have a chance to hit you back. And again, this is just so fantastic for giving your units that mobility and that extra survivability that will enable them to just hit and run all over your enemy's battle lines all across the course of the battle. It is very pricey, and especially if you combo it with the Hunt, it's very pricey admittedly, but being able to attack an enemy and then fall back without taking any damage in return is honestly going to cause your opponent so many headaches. as they are trying to plan their strategy for the battle. Away from melee, we do of course have the ever useful weapons from the Dark Age, giving your plasma up to 3 damage per shot, which means that you will average 13 wounds on an enemy knight, or against something as terrifying as Thunderhammer Stormshield Terminators, you should do about 4.4 unsaved wounds, meaning that you can outright kill 4 Terminators from a 5-man squad and have a reasonable chance of just wiping out the entire squad from the tabletop in just one volley. Another survivability stratagem you could use is High Speed Focus, which just lets you boost the Jink Invuln up to a 4-up without any need to advance at all. So if you really did need that +1 to hit for staying still, but still wanted to survive the turn of enemy firepower, this isn't a bad one to use for 1 CP. And also the main Marine Codex stratagem of Skilled Rider is another fantastic 1 CP stratagem, which pretty much just gives your unit a -1 to be hit by enemy attacks. So if you have that big 10-man squad, a combo of these 2 stratagems again means that even the heaviest of enemy firepower will struggle to kill off many of your Black Knights, having to get through that -1 to hit and that 4-up Invuln before they start killing off your models. So it's definitely fair to say that there are a good chunk of very strong stratagems and combos available for the Black Knights. In terms of how I would use them though, and are they worth taking, I do still think that's a tough one really. I think they would be very valid and very worth taking without being broken in any way if the 40-point price tag for them included the Corvus Hammer. It is essentially mandatory in my opinion, because otherwise they just have no melee punch whatsoever, so you are almost always going to be taking it unless you are, you know, really intent on them never getting anywhere close to combat. But for me as well, it's also just part of their fluff and their look. They're meant to have these hammers as part of their loadout, so I would always take them with the hammers, even if I didn't plan on them getting into combat all that often. And I think 45 points for that whole package just feels a tiny bit too steep. Because yes, they are fantastically mobile and they have a decent amount of durability and damage output, but it's certainly not the best by any stretch, and honestly you will find them dropping very quickly if your opponent does decide to focus a lot of firepower onto them. And again, yes, 31 attacks at strength 5 with 2 damage sounds terrifying, but I have seen these guys bounce off anything from generic Marines to light vehicles a huge, shockingly high number of times. They will on average kill 6 intercessors on the charge from a full 10-man squad, but that is costing you 450 points to do so. And then to really get the best out of them, you need to spend even more points because they work best in one of the various Dark Angel Death Stars that you can put together, so giving them Samael to accompany them for the rerolls, or an Apothecary to revive them and give them that 6-up Feel No Pain. They're both pretty much mandatory if you are bringing a 10-man squad of Black Knights, and likewise things like the Talon Master to give them reroll wounds and ignore cover are also maybe not mandatory but really useful to just get the most out of them. And I mean, that's great and all, but that is essentially just throwing all of your eggs into one basket. You know, it's something like 850 points out of your army into what is essentially 13 models. So do I think Black Knights are good? I mean, they're awesome models. They really are. They're some of my favorite in the game, and they do have some fantastic rules, and they are fluffy as fuck for a Ravenwing list. I just think personally, if the Corvus Hammer was baked into their profile and their cost, they would 100% be worth that 40-point price tag. And taking a full squad of 10, giving you 2 5-man 200-point combat squads would be a really reliable, really powerful way to bring them in Ravenwing lists. As it stands right now, however, they are 100% fun and cool to play, and I think they can do some good work, but they're never going to be a hugely fantastic investment on the battlefield, just because of how easy it is to kill that 450 point unit. Even though it's 30 wounds, they're toughness 5 with a 3-up save, which is good, but there is so much in the game that can very easily take them out in one single shooting phase. And then even just taking a 5-man squad for 225 points, yeah, it's going to pay off sometimes, but equally other times you will just see them shot off the board before they can even move. But what do you think of the Ravenwing Black Knights? Do you use them in your Ravenwing lists, or are things like Outriders or regular bike squads with plasma just a better investment for the points? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.